Hello, today we are gonna do the explanation for how the z-index was used in our Game of 2025 game. And we know that the z-index is there so that we would be able to determine which which sprite images would be on top of the other. So for example, you got a character moving around and you have another character. How would the computer know which one to put above the other character? So the way we solve that problem is to use what we call the quicksort algorithm, because we need to find the position of each of the characters and then find out which one should be on top of the other based on its height. When I say height, what I mean by this is its position in the y-axis. So, for example, you have a character that is at the top portion of the screen and another character at the bottom part of the screen. Then the bottom character would be supposedly the one above the first character, because if you remember, based on a certain perspective, you would see that the ones above the other characters would be in front, supposedly. And that's why they should be covering the other characters behind him. Okay? And we know how to figure that out based on its Y position in this case. And it's a pretty good trick, especially for this case. So, what I've put here is the list of z indices where the default would be 4, which means that if all the other characters are 4, then they would have this same z index. And because of that, it's actually kind of confusing if they all have the same z index, which is 4, right? So how do you know which one should go above the other? That's why you can put a variation in the z index, a variation in the z indices, so that if I have 5 characters, the the lowest z index would be 4, and then 5, and then 6, 7, and 8. So whichever gets the highest z index would be the one above the others, and the one with the lowest z index would be the one behind all the rest, and it goes up in that way. Now there's another variable that we have to consider, and that is what is the y position is supposed to be. Its y coordinate position helps us find out whether it should have the lowest z index or the highest z index. So for example, I have here a set of numbers 4, 5, 3, 2, 1 for each of the characters, and each of the characters would have a z index, and the y position or the height based on the y coordinate position on the screen would be given to each of the characters. So the way to sort it is to first go from the first character. In this case, I am looking at the one on the leftmost side, and then we check the next character, and here it says that the z index is 5, so it should be above it, and the height is at position 5 in the y coordinate system. Now we need to put the y coordinate position here because they change, they move around, right? So that's why if they're moving around, then we need to know if they're still above the other ones or below the or behind the other characters. So that's why we need to keep on checking this. And in this case, this is the current position of all the characters on screen. So the first one is 4, and then the next one is 5. We check whether it is lower. Is 4 lower than 5? It is lower than 5, so we don't need to change their z index positions anymore. Then we go to the next one. Is 4 lower than 3? And we say no, because 3 is lower than 4, and so we need to swap them. We need to swap them so that 3 is where 4 is. And then that means also that the z index that it will get would be the one that is lowest. So it will be behind everything, every character on screen. But we're not done, because we also have other characters, and that's why we need to check the rest. So we swap the 3 and 4 like this. So 3 is now here, and then we go to the next one and 2, and it says, or we need to ask, is 3 lower than 2? So because 2 is lower than 3, we need to swap them, and that's why we have 2 here and 3 there. Next, we need to check the next one. Is 2 lower than 1? And we know that 1 is lower than 2. That's why we swap 2 with 1, and that's why 1 is here. So this one, after we've done all the characters, the 5 characters from here to here, we know that the first one with the lowest z index is already the one that is supposed to be behind every single character that is on screen. Once we've done that, we have to go to the next one. And right now it's currently 5, and we go and check the whole thing again until will be able to form the list of characters in this way, where the z index for each is the correct one, because their position is supposed to be above or behind the other ones. And that's how we could be able to draw the characters in the correct way. And of course the computer is helping us, because the computer would need to check all these things over and over again, because the characters are all also moving around. Okay? Alright.